So this is my 2011 STI. I picked it up last summer, which is when all this footage is from, and I got a pretty good deal on it, and a big reason I got a good deal is because the paint is really not in good shape. You can see here there's just a ton of swirl marks. I don't think this thing's ever been hand washed. I think it's exclusively been through like automatic car washes. You can see there on the doors there's all those vertical streaks, and the front end is just ridiculously covered in rock chips. It's got this disgusting old 3M clear protection on it that's full of scratches. And yeah, you can see here just rock chips on every forward-facing surface. So this thing needs a pretty big paint overhaul. Now just a quick disclaimer here, I'm not a professional detailer. I barely qualify as an amateur. I'm just some guy who's trying to make his car look less shitty. First thing I did was got out the heat gun to remove all this crappy old 3M clear bra. You can see there on the front fender where the color very clearly changes from the cloudy, almost gunmetal of the 3M to the actual black that the paint is more or less supposed to be. And that's really noticeable from far away. It just looks awful, so I'm just getting rid of this 3M altogether. This hood panel specifically was a pain in the ass. I guess it probably gets the most sunlight, so it came off in very small pieces and left all of the glue behind, which was a huge pain. As you can see, once I got all the plastic off, there was so much glue left behind. Basically, the entirety of the front part of my hood was covered in glue. To get rid of this glue, I just sprayed it down with some mineral spirits, and then I scraped it off with a soft plastic card I had. Luckily, I didn't have to do this on the entire car. I really only had to do this on this panel because it did take a very long time. And you can see even now, there's that distinct line near the top of the frame where it transitions from the paint that was being protected by the 3M to the paint that wasn't. And just that stark contrast that really shows you how bad the paint is on this car. Once I got all the glue off the hood, I was able to keep peeling the plastic, and most of the panels came off more similar to this, where I could just pull it off in one big sheet. And this is a shot I just took to highlight that difference. The right side is what needs to be fixed, and the black side is what I want it to look like more or less at the end. You can see some panels, like the front bumper here, did leave some chunks of excess glue, like the one you can see just below the headlight, but nowhere near as bad as the hood. In situations like this, I just sprayed a bit of mineral spirits, and then I was able to just rub it off with a microfiber cloth. Make sure, if you're doing this, make sure you use a crappy microfiber cloth, because this glue just destroys them. With all that 3M gone, things are starting to look a little bit better, but it has also highlighted all of the rock chips that are in the hood. You can immediately see them even from 10 feet or however far I'm filming. And they're just everywhere. Even going up the A-pillar, and then there was some on the roof as well. For each of these rock chips, what I did was, first I scratched all of the rust out of them with the little fiberglass tip that comes on a paint pen. And then I liberally applied the touch-up paint. My goal was to apply it thick enough that it would kind of fill in the hole. And then I applied the touch-up clear coat. This is what it looked like with all the rock chips filled in. You can see they're still very noticeable because rather than there being a little chip there, now there's just like a little blob of paint there. And this was intentional because now I can go through and level out all those little blobs of paint and ideally end up with a pretty flat, nice finish. So for each of these little blobs of paint, I went through and I wet sanded them with 2000 grit, and that would level them out to the same level as the paint. There were some kind of tough ones, like this one I'm working on right now, that I didn't quite get down to the same level because I was worried I was going to start going through the factory clear coat, but after a bit of polish to get rid of all these sanding marks, they all turned out pretty good. It's at least better than it was before. Now I have to do that 200 more times. So this is what it looked like with all of the rock chips leveled out. As you can see, it looks a lot better. One thing to note is that the car is wet in this picture, so those little dots you see on the hood are drops of water, not rock chips. But overall, it's noticeably better. So with the 3M and the rock chips taken care of, now this is just a pretty standard detail job. I started with a clay bar, and this is going to pull all of the little particles and imperfections out of the clear coat. And what I'm spraying on there is just dish soap diluted heavily in water, and that just allows the clay bar to glide across the surface of the clear coat without getting snagged. And this just shows you how much stuff the clay bar pulled out of the clear coat. Now it's all embedded in the clay. After the clay bar, I just gave it a good rinse to get all the excess dish soap off the car. This shot I just left in because I thought it gave me good middle-aged dad energy, which is depressing because I'm in my 20s and I have no kids. Now it's time for polishing. This is what's going to get rid of all those swirl marks I've been complaining about. I'm using a random orbit buffer on a fairly low speed with some Meguiar's polishing compound. I'm alternating between vertical and horizontal stripes just so I don't leave buffer trails all over the place. And overall, this setup seems to have worked pretty well for an amateur like me. I was able to get rid of all the swirl marks, and I also didn't burn through my clear coat, which is effectively all I could ask for. After I was done polishing, I gave the whole car a rinse, and I wiped off all of the excess polish. Now it's time for just a regular old car wash. I like to use Chemical Guy's Mr. Pink, but I think that's more so because I'm a victim of good marketing than because I have any strong opinions on what kind of car wash I like to use. And it's pink, which is fun. Now's a good time to make sure nobody's watching over your shoulder, because I imagine it'll be pretty hard to explain to them why you like watching fat Canadian guys wash cars. I'm worried this is too sexy for YouTube. So after polishing and washing it, this is what we have. I'm very happy with how this looks. The black is way darker than it used to be without all that oxidation in the clear coat. I could probably call it quits here, but I want to protect everything I've done so far, so we're going to apply some ceramic coat. The ceramic coat I just wiped on with a microfiber towel, and I realized after doing this panel that I had been using way too much product, which is dangerous because it can leave these nasty streaks that are very hard to get off. But it seems I got lucky here, and after wiping it off, I wasn't left with any bad streaks. For the rest of the panels, I applied it much more conservatively, and I wasn't left with any streaking problems. At this point, it was getting dark, so I didn't film the entire ceramic coat process, but this is what it looked like after it was done. I really hope it comes across well on video, just how different this car looks now. Not only is the paint a lot shinier and has much more of a mirrory finish, but when I bought this thing, the clear coat was so oxidized that it almost looked like it was gunmetal gray. And now without all that oxidation, it's such a noticeably darker black. Overall, I'm really happy with how this has turned out so far. But there is still one more big thing to do. These headlights are so gross, they're barely even see-through, and they have to go. Now, I could try and polish the lenses, but I'm not a huge fan of that because you lose UV protection, and typically they're just more likely to get oxidized like this again. So what I ended up doing was I bought some nice aftermarket headlights, and as you can see, not only do they look a lot cooler, but the lenses are transparent and not translucent. The headlights are a surprising pain in the ass to change in this car. You have to pull off the whole bumper, but gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. This is what it looks like with the new headlights. I think those are quite a bit more modern looking and way cleaner, and I'll splice in some before and after shots here so we can really get an idea of the difference. Overall, for an amateur driveway job, I think this turned out very good. I'm really happy with this car now. That's about it for this video. Be sure to click that unsubscribe button, and if you're an experienced detailer, be sure to leave a comment telling me everything that I did wrong. Thanks for watching.